Okay, so the Facebook recording page is started, I believe.
We have just the recording. I don't see the live yet.
Okay, just checking. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just letting folks in. Take a minute or two.
We've been informed that Facebook is down.
Facebook does appear to be down. I am not able to go live on Facebook.
All right.
My app is working, but doesn't mean that.
Madam Chair, if that's the case, we'll be recording the hearing, so we can upload that to the website.
All right, so staff, let me know when we're good to begin.
If we're not able to go live on Facebook and we're just going to be recording the hearing to give to LIS, then we are ready to start whenever you are, Madam Chair.
Is that agreed, Mr. Chair?
Let's get the show on the road.
All righty then, we'll begin, everyone. Welcome to today's Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure. I want to welcome everyone to this virtual setting, which will be available later. It's being held under emergency rules and is being recorded live here. Just looking, we have a crowded set here, just looking for members to introduce as they come in. Today's hearing has several different issues. We will accept written testimony after today. For those that are speaking, it is a 3-minute limit. So just want to keep you apprised of that and let you know that Attorney Brennan, who you see on screen, will be giving you a 2-minute warning with a yellow and then a red is a hard stop. And we are going to do pretty strict hard stops today because we do have such a abundance of interest here and folks wanting to speak. And again, remember, your written testimony can be submitted after. Just want to welcome you all. I'm Senator Moran from the Plymouth Barnstable District as co-chair of the committee, and I want to pass it to my co-chair, Rep. Chan, for introductions on his side.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In no particular order, I'm recognizing the House members based on seeing the participant list. We have Representative Jake Oliveira, we have Representative Joe Machino, we have Representative Mary Keefe, who's the Vice Chair of the Committee in the House. We have Representative Joseph McKenna, Representative Steve Howitt, and I believe that's all the House members I can see in the participant list at the moment. I do see Senator Kennedy.
Yes.
Ed Kennedy is also here, and I'm sure other members will be popping in and out through the course of the day. Just to give a little administration note for the members, please keep an eye on your email regarding committee briefings that are currently being set up for the whole committee, as well as future executive session. And we have been notified by staff there are late file bills that have just come in. So we'll be hearing late files at some point down the road, just to give you a heads up. So keep an eye on your emails, folks. Thanks.
Great. And I am going to announce folks who will be called to testify in order of the list a few in advance so you can prepare. I do see on Bill Senate 215, Senator Lesser is expected. If folks could notify him, we'll be ready to take him out of order as a courtesy when he does come in. We next have House 357. Rep. Ehrlich. Rep. Ehrlich, are you here?
I am here. And
hey, welcome. This is for an act to protect innovation and entrepreneurship in the Commonwealth. Please go ahead and welcome.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moran and Chair Chan and honorable members of the committee. I thank you for your hard work and attention. Just so you know, this is the same bill that Senator Lesser will be testifying about. We are working together on this. So I don't know. I know he has a busy day today. I'm not sure he'll make it, but I will be very brief. I come before you today in support of House Bill 357, an act to protect innovation and entrepreneurship in the Commonwealth. This bill that I filed in partnership with Senator Lesser is the result of years of research and a rapidly worsening trend. Our intention with this bill is to protect Massachusetts innovators from bad faith patent infringement claims that put our state's reputation for innovation at risk. First, let me just give you a definition. Many of you have heard of the term patent trolls. They are not mystical green creatures lurking under bridges. Instead, the term refers to bad faith patent infringement. These so-called trolls are actually companies that exist not to make products of their own, but instead to litigate over and over again, asserting patent violations against mostly small and mid-sized companies that are seeking to innovate. The lawsuits they file are costly debacles that hamper innovation, which of course is a proud hallmark of the Commonwealth, and they drain innovators of their seed funding, which is quite precious. What's worse is these so-called non-practicing entities are unafraid of litigation themselves because they are shielded from countersuit because they don't actually produce anything of their own, while of course their targets have so much to lose. Less than 1% of all defendants in these lawsuits are ultimately found to have infringed on a valid patent. And more than 87% of them choose to settle because of the high costs of litigation that they cannot afford. A study conducted by the Obama administration in 2013 found that the victims of patent troll lawsuits paid $29 billion in 2011, which was a 400% increase from 2005. A study out of Boston University Law School found that the national cost of patent infringement rose from $3.6 billion in 1984 to $61 billion in 2009, making it urgent for states to step up and take action. As of 2016, 29 states have passed similar legislation based on state jurisdiction over business-to-business commerce. In past sessions, we've gotten closer and closer to seeing this issue addressed. And this session, I'm proud to file this legislation once again in the House. What this language does is it creates new protections for entrepreneurs by enforcing a ban on making a bad faith assertion of patent infringement. In the interest of even minimal transparency, the bill requires companies claiming patent infringement to identify themselves in cease and desist letters they send to entrepreneurs and identify the exact patent that they claim is being infringed upon. It also provides legal remedy for entrepreneurs who receive false claims of patent infringement, which includes equitable relief, damages, costs and fees, including attorney's fees, and exemplary damages in the amount equal to $50,000 or 3 times the total of damages, costs, and fees, whichever is greater. And lastly, just to point out what is perhaps obvious, in addition to the destructive effect patent trolls have on innovation, there are many jobs in the Commonwealth that are on the line. I look forward to working with you, committee and chairs, so we can make progress on this bill and ask that you consider releasing this bill from committee with a favorable report. I thank you for your attention today and your hard work and for taking me out of turn. All much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rep. Ehrlich. Your testimony as well is much appreciated. Are there any members of the committee who have questions or comments for Rep. Ehrlich? Just going to take a minute to scan anyone who may be waving. Also encourage you with this number of folks to use the raise hand feature. But Rep. Ehrlich, looks like we're all set. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chair Moran.
The next items on the agenda for today, we have 2. We have Senate 186 filed by Senator Sear to resolve resolve relative to disclosure of radio frequency notifications, and Senate 187, also by Senator Seer, an act relative to the safe use of electronic devices by children. I'm going to call the first three folks who have signed up to testify so that you can get ready. The first is Ken Gardner on Senate 186. The second is Allison McDonough on Senate 186 and 187. And the next will be Cecilia Doucette, Mass for Sale Tech, Senate 186 and 187. So Mr. Gardner, are you ready?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Ken Gardner. I live in Warren, Massachusetts, at the western edge of Worcester County. I have an electrical engineering degree from MIT. I want to stand in favor of Resolve H186, the formation of a committee to look into microwave harm that's being done and to help Massachusetts find a better path. We all know we're being overexposed to such radiation. We have our phones, we have our wireless routers, we have our smart meters, we have cars, and we have Internet of Things and dishwashers and washer machines that talk to us. We are overexposed. We are overexposed to the point of health concerns, and we need to do something about that. There are some people in the society, maybe 1% of Massachusetts, that are acutely sensitive. They feel things, and in our household, my partner is electrically sensitive in this way. And so I've spent the last 3 years learning about this topic in great detail, and I'm submitting a dozen-page attachment with my testimony today with many particular points and suggestions for the committee. The committee is going to continue the New Hampshire committee report that found there is a lot of misinformation. And so public awareness is vitally important. And I hope that we are able to change the curriculum for school students to teach them how to use technology safely, but to also change the state college curricula for doctors and electrical engineers and teachers and everyone to understand that this is a very important topic that shouldn't be swept under the rug. Microwave radiation is a class 2B agent. That means it is a possible human carcinogen in the same category as DDT. So it's air pollution, and we know how to deal with air pollution, or at least we used to. The FCC has mucked it up with their very industry favored status. It is not looking out for human health. It's time to incorporate the precautionary principle where we don't have to wait for all the science to come in. We already have enough science to say there's a problem, and we can move forward with some better regulation, some more information. Citizens are never informed when new antennas are put up about whose house is going to be overexposed. They have no avenue of redress. If someone thinks they have microwave sickness induced by a device, they have no one to call at the state level. It's a situation that needs to be rectified. So in summary, I'd like to support this H186, and I hope that it does not encounter headwinds unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Are there questions from members of the committee for Mr. Gardner? Rep. Farley Bouvier, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, fellow members of this community. I thank you for your indulgence for letting me make a comment here. We have a very, very strong local interest in this bill. And when I say local, it's specific to my neighborhood. We had at the very beginning of COVID, a new tower being placed just a few hundred feet from here, from my home without notification. There's significant health issues happening in the neighborhood. And when I say frustration from this neighborhood, not being able to really get answers from city or state officials, I'm not kidding. As Mr. Gardner said, there is no place to go. Now, what's going on here? Is this a crazy thing that people are saying, that they're sick from their cell phones? Well, I don't think so. That's not what we're hearing. And, we didn't pay attention decades ago when the tobacco industry told us we were crazy, that tobacco was harmful. And we didn't think, we thought people were crazy. The industry told us we were crazy when PCBs were told, we were told that PCBs were harmful. But we know that to be true now. And I think as elected officials, we have a very serious responsibility to ensure we get the answers about what the health effects of this are, and to do the studies independent, this is very important, independent of the industry experts who are being paid to say what the industry wants, is the least that this body can do. So I really am urging the chairs to make sure we move these bills forward so that we can get answers to people, to give us the tools to make the changes that we need to make. Again, Madam Chair, I really appreciate the time today.
And thank you for your question and comment, Rep. Farley Bouvier. Are there any other members of the committee who have a question for Mr. Gardner? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and call the next person. Thanks, Mr. Gardner. You're all set. Next is Allison McDonough. Allison, are you here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear
Go
me?
right ahead. Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Allison McDonough, and I have been struggling with the traumatizing effects of EHS, or electromagnetic hypersensitization, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, since the first release of digital Wi-Fi technologies in the 90s, 30 years ago now. During this time, with a few confused exceptions, at no time have I knowingly owned or operated any kind of wireless device. Since the deployment of 5G, the severity of my symptoms has escalated dramatically. So I have been working closely with both a physician and a neurologist at Mount Auburn Hospital to more confidently establish the lack of any alternative explanations. My blood work is fine. My peripheral nervous system tested normal, and my central nervous system is also fine. What's getting blocked is the communications between my central and peripheral nervous systems, between my brain and my body. And this manifests as a speech impediment and ataxia. People with ataxia walk and talk and fall over and run into things and drop things and break things like we are drunk, like we are stone cold sober. It is unbelievably scary to even cross a street, let alone go grocery shopping or even walk around the block. The vertigo, the flushing, the insomnia, fatigue, constipation, and multiple chemical sensitivities all pale in comparison to the ataxia and speech impediment that set in March of 2020 and that escalated to new heights in August of 2021. We need this commission. We must proceed with more caution. The negative impacts of runaway EMFs and EMR are very real. Please, we need to pause and take the time to figure this out. Thank you.
Thank you for your heartfelt testimony, Ms. McDonough. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll next call Cecilia Doucette, Mass for Sale Tech, and thereafter Theodora Scorado and Courtney Gilgaude. Cecilia Doucette, are you ready?
I am, thank you. I did receive a notice from Ms. Scorado. She has a conflict until 1 o'clock, and we hope that she'll be able to circle back and testify when she arrives. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Cecilia Doucette, and I'm the Director of Massachusetts for Safe Technology. And I helped Ashland Public Schools become the first in the nation to have this sign hanging in our classrooms with precautionary measures back in 2014. Senate Resolve 186 and Senate 187 address EMFs, or the electromagnetic fields of microwave radio frequency radiation pulsed from our personal devices and routers, from cell towers, from 5G small cells, and utility smart meters. As the pandemic has taught us, we need to be vigilant about invisible toxins in our environment. In my home, we simply hardwire and use adapters to connect all of our devices to the Ethernet. And so when I turn on this radiation detection meter, you will see it is in the green. And that's because I have eliminated every wireless signal that I can. And now watch what happens when I take my cell phone out of airplane mode and allow these transmissions to come through. Oh, let me put the audio on for you. So this is what this radiation does to our bodies day and night. That is what is making the last two speakers and their loved ones so sick. And in the scientific literature, in our sleeping areas, the science indicates we should be at 0.1 microwatts per meter square of this radiation. From my one cell phone, we just measured 81,700. That's 870,000 times higher than what the science is telling us is a safe level. So this is a neurotoxin and an immunosuppressant. And we have given every student in Massachusetts a wireless device to access their education with no safety training. Thankfully, when we met with the New Hampshire legislators, they passed a law in just 7 months. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. New Hampshire has done the hard work. They call out the conflicts of interest with the FCC, the FDA, and the wireless industry, and they make 15 recommendations to hardwire our communities, educate the public, measure this radiation, and fix that broken Telecom Act. Although it looks like a really big report to read, all of the summary and recommendations are in the first 17 pages. They had doctors, scientists, engineers, their Department of Public Health and their Attorney General's office on that. They are the first in the nation to do this, and we are so well poised. Representative Chan, I am so grateful for the work that you and your colleagues did in a prior session to investigate and actually write the bill that is in front of you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Doucette. I'll start the question by just asking if the report is anywhere available online.
Yes, it is, and we'll send it in our testimony as well.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Doucette from members of the committee? Just going to scan for a minute. All right, seeing none, thank you very much. And we'll look for Ms. Scarrato before the end of the hearing. We will next have Courtney Gilardi and Dorothy Baker, and thereafter Kristen Beatty. And in the meantime, there's just a question to staff about streaming. So if on the chat, if staff could take a look at that, and if there are any responses, to go ahead and put that in the chat, or just wave me down and we'll try to answer that question. So next we have Ms. Gilardi. Are you available?
Yes. Hello, I
Please go
am,
ahead.
but is it okay to be postponed, because my daughter Amelia would also like to give testimony, and she's just coming down now. She'll be ready in a few minutes.
Actually, I don't have Amelia signed up. I just have you, and now is your time. So please go ahead.
Okay.
It's 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. We are asking for consumer protections for wireless health, and we are asking for them now. I never thought that I would find myself in the position of being an advocate for my children, my neighbors, and myself, and the 3 to 30% of the people in Massachusetts and across the world either harmed by wireless radiation or sensitive to it. I, like any parent, feel like it is my job first and foremost to protect my children's health, and I feel like we all failed them when a cell tower was constructed with no notification at the top of our safe, secure residential neighborhood. It was a safe home until the tower was turned on and the radio frequency radiation wreaked havoc on my family's and on my neighbors' health. The day that the tower was fired up, my youngest daughter, 11 years old, woke up feeling headachy, dizzy, and her head was buzzy. Another neighbor woke up with palpitations and AFib. Now there are 17 people in my neighborhood who are injured because of the wireless radiation of the cell tower. Now, we test everything in Massachusetts: water quality, air quality, soil quality. I was a preschool owner for 9 years, and I needed to use my own money to remediate any lead that could be seen as a hazard. As a preschool owner, I was considered a mandated reporter, and if anything could create harm, it was my job to report it. And yet, children are swimming in wireless radiation from cell towers, from smart meters, from wireless devices of which they have no control or consent given to subject their bodies to something that is a known carcinogen. My children have suffered. Today, we are at a hotel because we have been displaced from our own home. We can no longer sleep there. It has been over a year. It is no fun living out of a bag. We stayed at a hotel. My daughter said, this is the first time in 7 months I've slept in a real bed and had a shower before I went to sleep. And is this how you want the citizens of Massachusetts to have to live? She wrote a story and she was going to tell it to you today if you gave her the opportunity to speak, called Amelia's Terrible, Horrible, Very Bad, No Good Cell Tower Day. I will make sure that you have a copy of it in her written testimony before 5 p.m. The story went viral and was translated into multiple languages, not because what happened to her and her little sisters and neighbors were unique, but the opposite, because people could relate because they had been harmed by wireless radiation. They were forced to move and they were forced to lose their homes and their health. Now, we pray that Verizon and Farley White Corporation are a good neighbor and take this cell tower down, but we are asking you as our legislators to protect us, a commission to study the effects of wireless radiation and to give our municipal leaders suggestions and recommendations that they can do to protect us is what they're asking for. The city of Pittsfield has been asking the state for 18 months, what can we do to help these poor people in this neighborhood? It has become an abandoned ghost town. We are asking you to pass this. We do not have time to let it sit in the House or in the Senate and linger.
Thank you,
Please.
Ms. Gallardi. That's your time. We very much appreciate your heartfelt testimony, and we look forward to the written follow-up. Thank you very much. It's now Dorothy Baker's time. Ms. Baker, or let me just quickly not skip over asking if anyone has a question for Ms. Gallardi from the committee. Quickly. No, you're all set, Ms. Gallardi. Thank you. Now I'm looking for Dorothy Baker.
Yes, I'm here.
Dorothy, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to express my gratitude to Senator Sear for these bills, which my understanding is that they're only asking that wireless radiation be investigated the way that New Hampshire has already done. And also to simply put notices in place to protect children from radiation and wireless devices. These seem like pretty simple things to ask, given the effects of this kind of radiation on people. I just wanted to share briefly a story about my friend Mary, who was severely sensitive to radiation. And she was a very independent and self-sufficient person, and she lived a very healthy life. She grew her own organic food, and she lived in a clean area. The air quality was good there for her. And she was an activist on this issue for a lot of her life. she developed cancer in her 70s, and she was, she was functioning pretty well before the radiation, and she had to live in isolation for a few years because, of course, Wi-Fi is everywhere. You can't get away from the radiation anymore unless you live somewhere far away from civilization, which she did. So she had cancer, and and we think it's related to this wireless radiation illness that she had. And she passed away about 3 years ago. But I think she would be happy that I'm using her story because she was an activist herself. I'm also sensitive to radiation, and everything I have is wired, my computer, and I have a landline for my phone. There's a lot of harm being done to a lot of people from this kind of radiation. And I really hope that these bills will, at minimum, be passed. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none. We next have Kristen Beatty. Are you available? This is your time to testify.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
All right, great. All right. I am in support of the idea of doing all the regulation that you can, but I'm concerned with how politics could influence any commission bill. I know that the Act on Math had a transparency campaign, and even if they are not completely correct in everything, I believe the problem is the technology industry is very powerful, and I'm concerned that the bill could be abused. So for example, the executive branch has shown signs of bowing to powerful players. And I believe that could also happen in the state house too. As I looked at the bill, I could tell that almost all the appointments are by the governor or his department heads. And in the past, I know he's been influenced by the industry. For example, he appointed private charter school interests to the Board of Ed. He appointed the utility interest to the Department of Utilities. So I have a few bills that I wrote, and my representative signed on to a few of them in support. I hope all of you will consider taking a look. One of the bills that I wrote is a commission bill for emergency personnel. And I think you could use that as an example for a commission if you want to go ahead for the commission. Because in that bill, adding the police union helps provide a counter to any political influence. And then there are a few other things. So I will give a few recommendations in the written testimony I provide. I'd also like to express support for the warning label bill. I believe that bill is to add the warning labels to cell phones. I believe that would.
Let's just keep it to the bill that you signed up for, please. It's Senate 186187. Thank you for that.
Okay. So just in conclusion, I am sensitive to wireless, and it has caused problems for me in terms of jobs. So I have to employ myself. It's a struggle. I'm also afraid of being exposed. I'm afraid for my family. And I know that Dr. Henry Lai, Professor Emeritus of the University of Washington and the College of Engineering and Medicine, has documented that the percent of the recent neurological, genetic, and oxidation studies show that biological effects are shown in about 70% to 90% of each of those categories of about 600 studies. And so there are biological impacts that I'd like you to be aware of. And I guess that concludes the testimony that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Beatty, for your important testimony. Are there members of the committee who have questions for Ms. Beatty? All right. Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Beatty. We will now move on to Patricia Burke, if you are available, and thereafter we will take testimony from folks signed up for House 310. Ms. Burke, this is your time if you're available.
Thank you. I'm Patricia Burke from Millis, and in 2012, I believe I was one of the first individuals in Massachusetts to request a non-transmitting electric meter when I moved to Gloucester. I had just returned from living in California for 2 years, where I witnessed and experienced directly the devastation that smart meters were causing. I cannot understand why it is that so many resources have been devoted in the last decade to misrepresenting the safety and efficacy of these technologies and not investigating environmental damage and bodily harm. And this includes the money spent in Massachusetts manufacturing fraudulent results for the Worcester National Grid smart meter pilot, where the cost grew from 45 million to over 2 billion, intended to be charged to ratepayers, yet unresolved, and providing justification for imminent grid investments. The World Health Organization itself had to recognize that it had been infiltrated at the highest policymaking levels by tobacco scientists and had to clear its ranks of corruption. And we are at the same tipping point with wireless. Many of those mercenary scientists went from tobacco to wireless, and this includes Philip Morris cigarettes expert Peter Wahlberg of Gradient, who provides testimony to the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities for many projects, including smart meters. There are complaints about Wahlberg and the DPU dating back to 2003. This foundation of lies is destined to collapse. In light of historical corruption, how do we hold ourselves accountable for choosing technologies that do not cause harm? The answer is to address the lies, as New Hampshire has done, as well as the court that recently ruled against the FCC for its abject failure to update exposure limits. Dr. Zach Bush states that grace is the opportunity to heal faster than we injure, and we are injuring ourselves and the ecosystem faster than we can heal. We will never address the challenges of climate and COVID by unleashing another industrial scale pollutant. I am grateful for the efforts of Senator Bruce Tarr and Worcester Senator Michael Moore, and I'm sure that there are also others. I ask this committee to forward these bills and establish the study commission, especially before more 5G infrastructure and smart meters are irresponsibly deployed on the basis of fraudulent data and misrepresentation of safety to prevent unnecessary, irreversible health, environment, and economic harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Are there questions for Ms. Burke from members of the committee? All right, seeing none, you're all set, Ms. Burke. Thank you. We'll move on to House 310 by Rep. Balser, an act relative to notification of fraud. We have 3 gentlemen signed up to testify. First, I'll call Matthew Cox from Inside True Crime, next James Ryan, and then Paul Solano from the same screen as James Ryan. So Mr. Cox, if you're available, please go ahead.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm in support of the bill. I'm actually a convicted felon. I did 12 years in prison for mortgage fraud and a variety of related mortgage frauds and bank fraud. And I was a licensed mortgage broker and a brokerage business owner. So I had several licenses. Specifically, the reason I'm speaking on this subject is I've worked with the FBI, Secret Service, and I work with a title monitoring service also, and I speak in front of different banking associations. basically what I'm speaking for James on behalf of James Ryan and in favor of the bill, because part of what made my specific fraud, and I know I'm on a time limit, so part of what made me, I guess, successful in my frauds that I committed was the fact that I was a licensed mortgage broker and I was a licensed brokerage business owner. And as a result of those licenses, being in a position of trust, I was continually allowed to continue with my frauds. And even after I was convicted, many of my victims were not notified that they were the victim of fraud. And the governing bodies that I had those licenses with were also not notified that I had or that I had been convicted of various frauds. And as a result of that, it just allowed me to continue going with those types of fraud. So I think it's important to notify the victims. I think it's important to notify the bodies that are over people that are licensed, and that's pretty much my testimony. Unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone from the committee have any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Cox. We'll move on to Mr. Ryan.
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure. Thank you for taking the time and interest in what I'm about to present to you about the need to have a law in place to protect against the use of fraudulent documents in the sale and purchase of real estate and collection of money. Most importantly, many thanks to Representative Ruth Balzer and her staff director, Dimitri Gridney, for filing this bill on my behalf. They were surprised to hear that there is not a law in place to protect against the use of fraudulent documents in real estate transactions. Furthermore, the Division of Professional Licensure did not properly enforce my situation that was brought to their attention in 2012, nor have other government agencies and its employees. In fact, multiple law firms have earned substantial sums defending Keller Williams' use of fraudulent documents in their sell and buyback program. In fact, the Board of Bar of Overseers had no issue with the attorneys using the forged fraudulent documents. My intention is to have a law put onto the books to ban the use of fraudulent documents to earn a profit in real estate transactions. In fact, Essex Superior Court is about to hear a case where multiple law firms are earning substantial sums defending Keller Williams' use of counterfeit forged documents in their condo flipping scheme. A blind eye has been turned towards my intention to prevent elderly fraud and abuse by coercing elderly unit owners to sell at a much lower prices because of a fake structural engineer's report that the property was in dire condition and should be demolished immediately. Commonwealth of Massachusetts investigator Van Tassel and Runge requested that I file a complaint in 2012 because they stated these folks were already under investigation for fraud. I must ask the following pertinent questions. Will I be charged with a crime if I create fraudulent $100 bills and pass them along to a local bank branch? Will I be charged with a crime if I use fraudulent credit cards at an electronics store and just thousands of dollars worth of equipment? Would there be any restitution? Will I be charged with a crime if I create a fake structural engineer's report to utilize it in a major real estate transaction to initiate the demolition of existing condominium units to subsequently develop new units at the same development? In fact, in 2016, at the Attorney General's office in a criminal bureau meeting, state investigator Daniel DeAngelis stated that after conferring with his boss, the sellers would be getting their condos returned and the owners would be getting their money back. The answer, honorable members of the Joint Committee, is yes. Yes, there was a crime committed in 2012 by still licensed civil engineer John D'Souza. Mr. D'Souza admitted to his guilt for utilizing a stamp of well-known structural engineer Aboud Al-Zaim.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Ryan. That's your time. You may submit the rest in written testimony. I'm now looking to see if there are any questions for Mr. Ryan from members of the committee. Okay, seeing none, we'll next take Mr. Solano. Welcome, Mr. Solano. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the Joint Committee. For the record, my name is Paul Solano with an address 51 Pleasant Street, number 126 in Malden, Mass. I've known Mr. James Ryan and his loving family of a wife and 2 daughters for over 20 years. My wife and I have stayed at his former Cape Cod unit number 23 at the CNCN condominium complex, Dennis, Mass, for many times over various summers. I must say that since 2012, my wife, who happens to be Jamaican, and I experienced many uncomfortable moments during our various vacation visits. We definitely feel that there was much disdain towards Mr. Ryan and his vacation renters, and many of the unit owners were not very pleasant towards my wife and me. In fact, during one of the years, we almost did not have the use of cable in the unit because we discovered that the association president, who happens to be a priest, ordered Mr. Ryan's cable cut because of Mr. Ryan's continuous battle to get targeted charges refunded to he and his family. The cable was restored before our visit. As time passed on, I noticed that there had been some turnover of a few of the unit owners. In fact, over 7 years ago, one elderly lady in particular really stood out as a person whom was always so pleasant to my wife and me. Her name was Mary Mendez. I later discovered that Mary was undergoing radiation treatment for cancer while in her 80s. Mary had decided to sell when she realized that her condominium unit value had declined dramatically from the $90,000 range to a coerced sales price of approximately $42,000 because of a structural engineer's report that, as we have already heard, was found to be fraudulent through Mr. Ryan's whistleblowing activity. The passage of H 310, an act relative to the notification of fraud, will save the future Mary Mendez and the James Ryans of the world from the unscrupulous, licensed and certified legal, banking, and real estate professionals who currently understand that a loophole in our Massachusetts legal system exists where Department of Professional Licensure employees and any state employees are not mandated to stop the use of a fraudulent document, i.e. a fake structural engineer's report. Profits must not be ascertained through fake structural engineers' reports. The taxpayer should have a legal right to discover if they ever were misled or misguided by certified professionals. With all due respect, this bill must be passed and the judicial system must rule on any money lost through the continuous use of a fake document without notifying the affected parties of the transactions. We must not say that crime pays in Massachusetts. Thank you again for your time and support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solano. Are there questions from members of the committee for Mr. Solano? All right, seeing none, we're all set, Mr. Solano. Thank you for your testimony. We're now going to move on to House 341 by Rep. Clara Cronin, an act relative to the digital right to repair and accompanying a Senate 166 filed by Senator Brady, an act relative to Digital Right to Repair Act. And the first 3 gentlemen I'm going to call who are signed up to testify: Paul Roberts at securepairs.org, Matthew Lentz thereafter, Entertainment Software Association, and after that, John Keane, Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. Mr. Roberts, are you available? All right, hearing none from Mr. Roberts. Mr. Lentz, are you available?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair and Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Matt Lenz, and I'm here on behalf of the Entertainment Software Association. I'm here today respectfully to oppose Senate Bill 166 and House Bill 341, which seeks to create a right to repair mandate. ESA is the trade association representing companies that publish computer and video games for PCs, mobile devices, and video game consoles. The makers of all three major console systems, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, are ESA members. People who play video games represent a diverse cross-section of the United States, spanning every age, gender, and ethnicity. Not only do 75% of US households have at least one gamer at home, our industry has an economic footprint that touches every state. In Massachusetts, for example, there are more than 80 video game publishers, developers, and hardware companies. Delivering consumers the best gameplay environment depends upon a trustworthy and secure delivery platform. There's a thriving modification market offering tools and other ways to modify game consoles in order to play illegal games downloaded from the internet. To combat this, video game consoles employ technological protection measures, or TPMs, to protect creative works and prevent illegal and unauthorized device modifications that could result in the ability to play pirated games. Once a console's TPMs are disabled, two worrisome events can occur. First, the game experience for players is diminished, sometimes dramatically, which could be seen as a flaw in the console or the game. And two, any number of illegal copied games from the internet could be played on the console. Piracy is of particular concern to smaller video game publishers who may be acutely affected by mass infringement and its impact on their livelihoods. AAA games can take several years to develop and cost tens of millions, or in some cases, more than 100 million to produce. A right to repair mandate poses a high risk to game publishers and other copyright owners who rely upon the secured media environment of the game console to safeguard their works against sophisticated piracy efforts. Sharing hardware schematics, sensitive diagnostic information, tools, and security-related resets codes with unauthorized third parties would compromise the security of the entire platform and harm console makers and copyright owners. ESA and the console makers have a strong interest in ensuring that game console owners have access to affordable, high quality, and safe and reliable repairs. All three console makers offer repair services beyond the warranty period, keeping consoles in good working condition, order, and ensuring product integrity are important to console makers. Every day, millions of Americans enjoy playing video games. Me, myself, I'm a gamer, and the continued viability and success of the game console business is dependent upon a trustworthy and secure delivery platform. If platforms aren't compromised, which we believe they will be if this right to repair mandate is imposed, it will hurt game publishers, console makers, and consumers' trust in a protected and entertaining gameplay environment. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions from members of the committee for Mr. Lenz? Seeing none, I want to welcome Rep. Sina, who's here, and move to the next person who has signed up, which is John Keene. Mr. Keene, are you available?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Keene of the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers, also known as AHAM, and we're here in opposition to House Bill 341 and Senate Bill 166. AHAM believes these bills raise far more safety concerns than they seek to address. Our industry encompasses everything from your refrigerator, clothes washer, microwave, electric toothbrush. Without our repairs include the handling of electricity, gas, water, and filtered air. In fact, appliances are subject to electrical codes, building codes, plumbing code, and safety standards to ensure that our products are handled safely. One thing to keep in mind is that one thing that sets our industry apart is that technicians enter people's homes, consumers. Therefore, safety and security take on additional meanings. Manufacturers will no longer have the ability to properly assess whether the people entering these homes have met the necessary technical and security checks to make sure the customer remains safe. Improper repairs could lead to significant property damage, including wrongly splicing wires, posing a fire hazard to the consumer, and using the wrong refrigerants, which could cause irreparable damage to the product. With that, I strongly urge you to oppose House Bill 341 and Senate Bill 166. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there questions from members of the committee for Mr. Keene? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We'll move to the next signed up is Gay Gordon Byrne from the Repair Association. After that will be Daniel Carson, United Construction Forestry, and then Walter Alcorn, Consumer Technology Associates. Gay Gordon Byrne, are you available?
Yes, I'm available, and there we are.
Go right ahead.
Start the video. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I wanted to bring you up to date on things that have happened since the last time we were before the committee. There's been quite a bit that has happened. The thing that I wanted to talk about most is a report produced by the Federal Trade Commission that came out on May 6th, which covered 2 years of research on the subject of right to repair, and specifically on the limitations that manufacturers are making to prevent consumers from repairing their goods. And I have provided the entire report as well as my cliff notes to the report. So that's been filed for you for written testimony. The most important thing I wanted to get across is that they have asked all the tough questions. They took a serious amount of time. I did not know any of this was going on after their public hearing back in July of 2019. And what they came back with just blew my mind, because they said there is scant evidence that there is any good reason that consumers should not be able to fix their property. And they use the word scant very specifically because of all of the groups and the OEMs that participated in the workshop, and the representatives of those parties are on this call. They failed to provide any evidence other than a single battery fire in Australia in 2011 that could have been linked to a flawed independent repair. So for all the things that we've been asking, they're coming back and saying, yeah, we looked into that. Nope, that didn't happen. Nope, no evidence. And they went through it pretty thoroughly. And I hope that you have a chance to browse through it. That's why I provided the quick summary. So just repeatedly, there's no evidence that independent repair is any less safe, less secure, more harmful, or inefficient than a branded repair. The big difference is obviously access to the materials you need to be able to repair stuff. You can't expect the same from an independent repair technician that doesn't have a schematic. They're not going to be able to make the same types of repairs. Same thing with parts. If you can't buy a spare part, your independent technician can't do the work. So the endorsement from the FTC was very ringing. They said that they would be delighted to help state legislatures. And one of the reasons they want to help state legislatures is that the FTC does not have the authority to do what a state can. They can go after manufacturers for anti-competitive tying agreements. They can go after them from violations of Magnuson-Moss warranty law, but they can't compel good business practices from the manufacturers. They can litigate, but they really don't have the authority to do what needs to be done. So that's why the bills that are starting to be filed in Congress are starting to pop up. There are 26 other states other than Massachusetts that took up legislation this year. Most of them concluded their session before that report came out. But when that report came out, it allowed the New York State Senate to pass their bill. There was a bill in Arkansas that moved. So we're really looking forward to seeing Massachusetts pull this bill out of committee.
Thank you.
Forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony and for citing that report. There are members of the committee who have any questions or comments with respect to Ms. Gordon Byrne's testimony. Just going to scan. Thank you, Ms. Gordon Byrne. You're all set. Appreciate that. Mr. Carson is next, and then Mr. Alcorn, and thereafter Alexander Castillo. Mr. Carson, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Daniel Carson, and I serve as the Corporate Sales Director for United Construction and Forestry. I'm also speaking on behalf of our sister dealership, United Ag and Turf. We are in opposition to the legislation. Combined, our dealerships represent John Deere construction, forestry, agricultural, and turf products throughout all of Massachusetts. While John Deere equipment has become more sophisticated, Deere supports the customer's right to repair and has built advanced diagnostic capabilities into our equipment that are available to the owner, dealers, or even state legislators like you. John Deere provides subscription access to Customer Service Advisor, which is a specialized diagnostic tool similar to the tools our technicians use to support our customers. Customer Service Advisor allows the equipment owner to do 95% of the repairs we do at a dealership. Right now, end users have access to onboard diagnostics via in-cab display or wireless interface, electronic diagnostic service tools, and Deere dealers provide training on how to use both. Right to repair is a complicated yet important issue. We believe the best solutions can be achieved when all parties talk together and allow the marketplace to shape the most appropriate solutions. The best solutions will not come from legislative mandates. In fact, across the United States, attempts to pass legislation similar to that is proposed has been defeated every time. We strongly oppose the digital right to repair. In respect to the committee's time, I have submitted written testimony as well.
Much appreciated, Mr. Carson. Are there questions from members of the committee? Thank you very much. Thereafter, we have Walter Alcorn, Consumer Technology Association. Mr. Alcorn, if you're ready.
I am. Thank you very much. My name is Walter Alcorn. I am the Vice President for Environmental Affairs and Industry Sustainability at CTA. And I just wanted to address a couple of the environmental claims that have been made surrounding this. We haven't heard any today, but just a couple points I wanted to point out to the committee. First of all, e-waste is in decline. It actually, according to a study by Yale and the Rochester Institute of Technology, peaked in about 2015, and since then has been the fastest declining product in the municipal waste stream. So you may hear from some folks that it's increasing, but actually it's just the opposite. It's going down. Also, there's also a misperception among some folks that smartphones and mobile devices in particular are being discarded in very large amounts. That also is contradicted by data. CTA does a consumer survey every couple of years to see what consumers do with their devices, amongst other things. And based on that data, only 2 to 3% of consumers actually throw away their mobile devices. And instead, consumers do the logical thing. They trade them in, they sell them to get cash, or they give them away to family and friends. So that is actually much more of an accurate picture of what folks are doing with these devices. So with that, I'll not use all my 3 minutes, but did want to let you know that CTA does oppose this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alcorn. Are you able to submit the sites that you quoted in, as part of follow-up testimony, if you have it available?
I sure will. Be happy to do that. I'll submit that in the next, this afternoon.
That'll be much appreciated. Thank you. Are there members of the committee who might have questions or comments with respect to Mr. Alcorn's testimony? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, sir. The next person that is signed up is Alexander Castillo. Thereafter, Christopher Fogarty, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 4, and then Jamie Majida, Mass Marine Trades Association. Mr. Castillo.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you for having me. Thanks to the committee for having me and hear my testimony. My name is Alexander Castillo, and I am a proud owner of 3 independent repair stores in Massachusetts. My first location was opened in 2013. And I have a background in an associate degree in electronics, and I've been around repairing electronics for over 15 years, I would say. My main location here in Boston, we have an average of about 3,000 repairs a year. That's just on one location. So in the community that we offer our services, 90% of my customers, I think, rather repair their devices than getting a new one. I constantly receive repeated customer with devices that we have the ability to extend their life of the product. The only problem that we come across is on new devices, there's not enough information for us to provide a service, technically repairs, no schematics, no software. It's been very hard, especially on new devices, for us to provide the service that we want to customers. With that being said, our average cost of repair is about $80 per repair. And counting the amount of repairs that we do a year, it's a huge amount of money that we actually save the community. One thing that we trying to do is provide people with a better service. Some of these devices that we repair nowadays are technically impossible to do. Some of them we have to refuse them because of the lack of information. I don't want to be specific on any brand, but we service so many different brands that lately are being returned for no information being around. I believe that if we get this bill to pass, it will make things very easy for many of us. I kind of disagree on many rumors of people trying to get hurt by repairing certain devices. So far, in my location specifically, we haven't had one single incident where we can say we're being at risk or anything that have happened with a device belong to another customer. So for that reason, I think we support 100% the right to repair. It will be good for many reasons. Not just we save money to customers, but also we extend the life of many products that we can avoid to be sent to landfills. We have here devices that are fairly new. Within 6 months of being around, they're already into my shop or being repaired for X reasons.
That's your time, Mr. Castillo. But I do have a question or two, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So what would you say is the most popular reason that your customers would use your service as opposed to going back to the manufacturer?
I would say money and time. When they have to send a device to a manufacturer, we're talking about at least 2 or 3 weeks return time on certain manufacturers. But also the amount of money that requires either shipping the device or the amount of money that the manufacturer requires to fix that particular device. I would say about 50% less money they will spend in my store.
Okay, another question. Do you find that there is a concern among your customers avoiding a warranty when they may use your service as opposed to a manufacturer?
Since I'm very honest with my people around here, I usually ask them whether the device is under warranty or not. And if they rather having saved the device or they want to go through the warranty process, most of the time they leave the device here for me to fix. One, because they want the data to be safe. Many manufacturers don't guarantee that your data is going to be protected. For example, if you send a laptop back to repair through warranty, most of the time they ask you to back up your information because they might lose it. And people don't want to go through that.
Okay, and lastly, you mentioned one instance where you think that you couldn't repair because of the lack of information with respect to the technology. So how do you deal with the customer when that happens?
It's very sad when I have to say to a customer, I'm sorry, I can't do this for you because I don't have a schematic to fix a motherboard for you. I know there's a lot of devices out there that are fairly cheap compared to just buying a new one, but not every single one of them have the same case. We got plenty of devices here that are, for example, Apple products that are super expensive. And if I don't have the right information for me to fix X motherboard, whatever it is, I have to refuse or decline and say that I can't do it.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. Are there other members of the committee who may have a question or comment with respect to Mr. Castillo's testimony? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks,
We
Anne.
next
Thank you.
have, appreciate it. We next have Christopher Fogarty. Christopher, are you available?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Representative Chan and honorable members of the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection. My name is Christopher Fogarty. I'm a member of the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE Local 4 based in Medway, Massachusetts. The IUOE has approximately 3,900 members in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. If you're unfamiliar with the role of the IUOE and their members of the operating engineers, they operate the bulldozers, the excavators, and cranes, helping form the shape, the infrastructure, and the skylines around the city and state of Massachusetts. We operate the boilers and generators and the heating and cooling systems, as well as maintain the buildings and grounds that help you comfortably at work and play. Operating engineers are the first on the construction site and the last off. When it involves a commercial or industrial complex, stationary engineers are there long after the construction is finished, operating and maintaining and completing the completed facility. The IUOE is dedicated to serving and protecting the needs and interests of its members and their families through the collective bargaining process, legislative action, and extensive training and skills improvement programs. In continuous operation since the 1800s, the IUOE's dedication to members is unmatched, with its efforts focused on safety and continued employment and the quality of work environment where pay and benefits match the skills of the IUOE members. I'm here to express the IUOE's opposition to SB 166 and HB 341 and would like to take a moment to share our union's beliefs that these bills are dangerous to the industry which we serve as the operating engineers. H 341, S 166 have many unintended consequences. These bills apply to all digital electronic projects. Digital electronic products is defined as a part of a machinery containing microprocessor originally manufactured for distribution and sale in the United States. With this broad definition in mind, original equipment manufacturers who create the bulldozers, the motor graders, the backhoes, the cranes which we operate are included. These large, heavy, and sophisticated systems require refined operations and service, as they must maintain a variety of safety-sensitive applications in order to keep the operating engineers in driver's seat. Tampering or otherwise altering these systems would be catastrophic to the safety of their operating engineers and those around them. Providing access to the embedded codes to these large, heavy, and sophisticated systems is in opposite of the intent of the legislation, which is to provide access to consumer product repair applications. By giving access to embedded code in this product content, the safety of operating engineers will ultimately be unnecessarily jeopardized. Operating engineers work in the construction equipment dealers across the United States, which rely on parts and sales to stay in business. The language defining fair and reasonable terms for parts sales is vague and ill-advised. HB 341 and SB 166, section 2 and 3, if adopted, provides language along with severely impacting construction equipment dealers, the IUOE jobs supported in these dealerships. Given these onerous and unnecessary terms, the jobs of the many operating engineers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will be at risk. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there questions from members of the committee? Okay, thank you, sir. Next signed up is Jamie Badiha. Are you available?
Yes, ma'am.
Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chairs, Co-Chairs, and the entire committee for your service. I am Jamie Buchanan, formerly Buchanan, and now Medea, which I say again to honor my husband's family who were kind enough to take me into the fold. I will speak very quickly and in less than 3 minutes. I represent the Massachusetts Marine Trades Association. We do want to thank several people on the committee. Many of you actually have been boating caucus members for over a decade, including Co-Chair Feeney is one of our Senate co-chairs of the boating caucus. I say that because it's 60 members of the legislature who are in that caucus. And yet I think it's my fault that I didn't call this to your attention sooner. I think there's a drafting error in the bill. I may be wrong that it's intentional, but I think it's an unintentional error. In your definition of motor vehicles, you have excluded road vehicles, but you didn't exclude, using the same terms, vessels. And I think what you meant to do was exclude road vehicles and vessels that travel by water, not just those that are on land, because of course it's even more dangerous to have an engine problem out in the open ocean than it is on land. So our written testimony will say exactly that. I was a little more thanking you in my first version. This one says thank you, but now I've realized I think the way it's written, the exemption was inadvertently omitted from section 11 as it refers back. So that's most of what I wanted to say, but also to add that the Mass Marine Trades Association is at your service. If we're incorrect and you wanted to more finely tune that, we pray that you are correct, because you don't want to be on the open ocean with an engine that has failed. We are a statewide body with over 1,000 marine trade businesses concerned about this, and our businesses employ over 20,000 men and women just in the Commonwealth. And that doesn't even include all the national manufacturers that would be affected if you were to intentionally or, thank you, I'm done. I appreciate your time. Thank you so very much.
And thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, you're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Join the boating caucus.
We'll take a look. We next have Lisa McCabe and thereafter Tia Sutton and David Webb. Ms. McCabe, are you available?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Lisa McCabe, and I'm here on behalf of CTIA, the Trade Association for the Wireless Communications Industry, in opposition to Senate Bill 166 and House Bill 341. The marketplace already provides wide range of consumer choice for electronic repair without the mandates imposed by this legislation. For example, manufacturers have relationships with authorized repair providers. These providers, which include local and small businesses, have received the appropriate training from manufacturers and have the qualifications to ensure that repairs are done properly and safely. Manufacturers go to great lengths to produce products of the highest quality, and authorized repair ensures that those products maintain that high quality and guarantees that they meet the manufacturer's standards. In addition to authorized repair, manufacturers offer walk-in repair options at retail, as well as mail-in services. Insurance providers also offer repair, which may even include a third-party remote technician traveling to a consumer to perform repairs. Consumers can currently use independent repair today, although manufacturers cannot guarantee the quality assurance of those independent repair providers. We're concerned that this legislation could have a number of unintended consequences to the operation of electronic devices. For example, even if an independent repair is provided the technical information required under this bill, without specific training on reassembling a device, they could unintentionally cause antenna performance problems, which could make it so an important call doesn't go through, or put stress on the device's frame that could make it break more easily when dropped. For these reasons, we respectfully urge you not to move this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe, for your testimony. And your testimony brings to mind, if the product is so delicate, I mean, it must be hard on consumers in general just to be able to use it. Do you have any statistics on problems that consumers have directly with those delicate pieces of the equipment?
I don't have any statistics on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there members of the committee who have questions of Ms. McCabe? Okay, seeing none, the next person signed up to testify is Ms. Sutton. Ms. Sutton, are you available?
I am.
Go right ahead, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Moran, Chairman Chan, and members of the committee. My name is Tia Sutton, and I'm testifying today on behalf of the Truck and Engine Manufacturers Association. EMA represents manufacturers of commercial vehicles and on and off-road engines used in many applications, including trucks, buses, construction and farm equipment, locomotives, marine vessels, lawn and garden equipment, and stationary generators. S-166 and H-341 on digital right to repair simply go too far. They'll create confusion, burdens, and risks for Massachusetts users and manufacturers alike, and will lead to significant adverse safety, environmental, and security impacts. The bills broadly define digital electronic product as containing a microprocessor. However, modern engines, vehicles, and equipment all contain microprocessors. The bills specifically exclude motor vehicles, yet they lack clarity on the exclusion of other similarly complex machinery, such as off-road engines and equipment and marine vessels, that would face the same significant impacts. As currently written, the bills would allow anyone, whether trained or not, to access and change the microprocessors of engines, vehicles, and equipment that control critical safety, emissions, and performance systems, thus creating significant adverse unintended consequences. Such digital right to repair legislation is simply not needed for vehicles or off-road equipment and creates a solution in search of a problem. The correct use of service information, such as diagnostic and repair tools, on the complex machinery manufactured by EMA members requires highly trained and skilled personnel. Unfettered access by untrained individuals will undermine the integrity of the equipment and allow for safety features on heavy equipment to be altered and compromised. It would further increase the likelihood for disabling federally mandated emission control systems, and such illegal tampering is increasingly occurring today, especially on off-highway equipment and trucks, and contributes substantial excess pollution that harms public health and air quality. The U.S. EPA has undertaken a national enforcement initiative to respond to the numerous instances of such engine tampering across the country, and this includes tampering via the use of software to alter or disable digitally controlled emission technologies. Additionally, allowing access to software that controls federally regulated systems also exposes owners, operators, and manufacturers to both civil and criminal liability for tampering. Lastly, the bills also fail to contain any safeguards or restrictions that would prevent or mitigate the risk of cybersecurity incidents from hackers. The legislation will simply make those efforts easier. EMA requests that any digital right to repair legislation clarify that all on and off highway engines, vehicles, and equipment are expressly excluded. Those products are not the type of consumer goods that appear to be the focus of the bills, and they're already covered by existing state and federal laws and manufacturer commitments. Lastly, the bills will limit the availability and or increase the cost of products sold in Massachusetts, as those products will be forced to have unique characteristics. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide our comments. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I've already submitted my written testimony, but I'd also be happy to submit additional information on EPA's enforcement initiatives.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. I would appreciate that being submitted as well. Thank you for offering to do that. Are there questions of Ms. Sutton from members of the committee? Seeing none, you're all set. Thank you very much. Next on the list is Mr. Webb from Hamilton Computer Repairs, and thereafter will be Gregory Blastka from Jesco Inc., and then Christopher Gilrain from TechNet. So, Mr. Webb, are you available?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is David Webb. I'm the founder of Hamilton Computer Repairs. We are an independent repair provider offering exclusively computer repair. I'm a constituent of Mary Keith. I have been repairing computers myself for fun and profit since I was 16. I opened my business almost a decade ago, and in that time, we've gone from a 200 square foot office space to a walk-in retail center on the busiest commercial street of the largest, third largest city in New England. When I opened, there were 11 computer repair shops in Worcester and 1 in each surrounding town. Now there are 3 in the county. And I'm the only one with employees. I fear if this bill were not to pass, we all could easily go out of business. I have been considering selling the shop. If this passes, I do not have to. I'm sick of not being able to help people. This pandemic has shown exactly how essential my business is. Unlike many industries, mine got significantly busier in February and March of last year. With an international silicone shortage, and as people started working and learning remotely, the demand for repairs skyrocketed. There was a national laptop shortage as every large company ordered hundreds for their employees. Every student realized they'd be attending virtual classes, and as the world switched to online. Having devices fixed by the manufacturer often costs more than 70% of the device's MSRP and often takes 2 to 3 weeks for them to get their device back, where our turnaround time is usually a week. People can save hundreds of dollars and a lot of time. I've survived this long in business because I recognize that my target demographic, and I ask you to recognize who this bill is for. This bill is for people, for students, families, entrepreneurs, and almost exclusively people who make 20 to 50K a year. This past month, we've been swamped with back to school repairs. Worcester's practically a college town. We've had WPI, Clark, and Assumption students in every single week with machines that they cannot afford to replace, need working, and are dependent on for education. They've talked to their manufacturers, and it's going to take weeks to have their machine fixed. Voting yes is a voting yes for right to repair is voting yes for consumers. It's voting yes for the middle class, and it's voting yes for the environment. It's a vote against planned obsolescence. Please keep me, my customers, and the people this bill actually affects in mind, and vote for our right to repair. Lastly, and I have to add this after previous testimonies today, we've heard from people in various suits from various video game companies, Tractor and Truck. They tell us about the repair warranty services they offer, and they're assuring us that they offer things directly to consumers. What they are not telling you is that their warranty doesn't cover many common problems, doesn't cover anything that breaks on day 366 of use. The repair options they offer are often priced to encourage people to consider buying new ones. It doesn't cover common things like joysticks breaking on gaming systems. Anything that people, they can blame on the consumer, by policy they do. These are not, lastly, they tell you how many problems letting people fix their machines will cause, but these complications only exist because of their business practices. That's why we're here. This is the problem we're here to resolve. Please keep the consumers in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Are there questions from members of the committee for Mr. Webb? All right, thanks. We'll go to the next person on my list, which is Gregory Blastka, thereafter Christopher Gilrain, and then Janet Dominitz. Mr. Blastka, are you ready to testify?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Greg Blask. I'm the CFO of Jessica Link. We are an equipment dealer. We represent Workin, John Deere, and Ditch Witch Products. We have 13 locations, 350 employees. We have 1 location in Massachusetts. My responsibility is to testify in front of these such committees. I have done that over the last 5 years in several states, and not one bill has passed, or our industry has been exempt. And again, my industry is heavy construction equipment, and I truly believe that this bill was not intended to bring our industry in, because as it was said once before, the manufacturers we do represent already provide the tools to the end user for the independent repair shop. And our private and public customers invest significant dollars in training, as well as the dealer to date. And our dealership has not received any requests from any of our customers, and that's state and a county. Can we have the source code? And I think the issue comes in about this embedded source code. There's less than 2% of the repairs require reprogram of embedded software. And so that's why another reason why I think this legislation goes a little bit too far beyond the what's needed. For me, not for our company, we're a family owned. We're now 50 years in, and we're concerned about the safety of the consumer. And I've witnessed it over my 41 years with the company of what can happen in heavy construction equipment when somebody makes a mistake. And we just recently had that, one a couple months ago, and the gentleman lost his life. So just think about giving somebody embedded code, and that person with the embedded code makes a mistake. So what does that do? That increases the liability of our industry, and increases the safety significance for the members, as we just saw for operating engineers, and same thing for our employees. I thought about this just the other night, and I know one other thing: intellectual property. Of what happens when you're given access to intellectual property. This bill says the manufacturers has to give to the competition, if they do buy that piece of equipment, to foreign competition, and also to foreign governments. They all can get this to look at the products that we have. Our manufacturers spend millions of dollars investing into new technologies, and we're in with the autonomous equipment running by themselves. We're also working. We also use with drones. Could you imagine by giving sinister people the opportunity to take that information and do things with it? Just think about that. Again, I don't think this bill truly was set for our industry, and I truly believe in that. I think it was a set for the phone industry, and they can fight that own argument. But in our industry, this is too big of it's too big, and for the safety and also for the protection of the country.
Thank you very
There's
much.
too many people. Thank you.
And are there questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll just take a minute and welcome, I believe I saw Senator Feeney here as well. The next person to testify is Christopher Gilrain from TechNet. Mr. Gilrain, are you ready?
I am. Thank you very much, Chair Moran, Chair Chan, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. I will be brief. We did submit testimony this morning in written form. TechNet is an industry association that represents 80 plus companies throughout the innovation ecosystem. We agree with many of the points that were made by other folks today regarding safety and security. TechNet believes that the best way to ensure consumer privacy and device safety is to ensure that the people entrusted with the repair and maintenance of these complex devices is properly trained, and there is a clear chain of accountability in the event that something goes wrong. Now, the debate generally on these bills tends to focus on some of our largest members, but a significant portion of our members are startups or funds that support startups. And when I think about this issue, I think about the startups who are members of TechNet and the startups that I worked with on behalf of the Commonwealth in my previous job at the Mass Life Sciences Center. For a lot of these companies, the only thing of value that they have is their IP. That blueprint or schematic is actually what they're pitching investors on, raising capital on, hiring people on. This bill, if this bill passes and they have to hand out those blueprints or schematics to anyone who asks as soon as they become the manufacturer of that device, how are they supposed to show investors or prospective employees of value there? And to the credit of the sponsors, there have been some significant adjustments to this language, but the line regarding what is or is not a trade secret is something that's going to be tested through litigation. And that could prove cost prohibitive or really destructive to a small business at a key inflection point when they're raising money or designing a product. So for those reasons, we oppose these bills. And for similar reasons, TechNet also supports S215 and H357, which were heard earlier today regarding patent trolls. So thank you very much for your time.
And thanks to you, Mr. Gilrain. Are there questions from the committee for Mr. Gilrain? Seeing none, we next have to look forward to the testimony of Janet Dominitz from MassPerg, thereafter Drake Jamali from Security Industry and Associates, and then Stephanie C. from the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. Ms. Dominitz, please go right ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you to both you, Chair Chan, and the rest of the committee. My name is Janet Dominitz. I am the director of MassPerg, here to express our support for H341 S166. There's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when something does break, you should fix it. As my grandmother used to say, waste not, want not. That's not just grandmother wisdom, it's common sense. But manufacturers of everything from phones to appliances to tractors intentionally make things difficult to repair, limiting repair to just their branded providers if they let anyone fix it at all. Manufacturers aggressively lock out repairs to either force us to go back to them or buy the newest version. The result is surging repair costs and a massive amount of waste. MassPerg has released research over the last few years to document just how much cost and waste we are talking about here in the Bay State. I'll provide you with a couple of quick bullet points to summarize. One, the Bay State produces some 233,000 tons of electronic waste per year, and electronic waste, as we all know, is highly toxic. It contributes 70% of the toxic heavy metals going to landfills in our state. Two, state residents dispose of some 8,000 cell phones every day. Even if all of those went into the recycling stream, only a fraction of the actual materials get reused. Most of it gets shredded and goes into a landfill. In addition to the waste, production of new devices means more damaging mining, smelting, and shipping. In fact, if Bay Staters used our cell phones for 1 year longer on average, that would have the same climate benefit as taking 13,300 cars off the road in our Commonwealth, or planting 2.8 million trees. If Massachusetts residents could fix instead of replacing electronics such that they extended lifespans of their devices by 50%, families would save $330 on average each year, which if multiplied across all households, totals $875 million. That includes the extra cost of additional repairs. We know that Massachusetts residents support choice and repair, and we know why manufacturers limit it, so they can decide how we fix things at what cost and when we should be pushed into an upgrade instead. Leader Cronin and Senator Brady's bills give residents that choice by requiring manufacturers to make the repair resource they have available to product owners and independent shops, the parts, the tools, the information. We've led on right to repair before. It's time to move ahead with full right to repair now, especially with President Biden calling for action and the FTC encouraging states to act. I will submit written testimony that will include the names of 52 small businesses in Massachusetts that support this bill, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dominitz. Would you say that there's a disproportionate effect on economically challenged folks of this bill? For example, folks who can afford the newest and the most up-to-date wouldn't be as affected as folks who, say students, as we heard from someone else mention.
Well, I think, the statistic that I mentioned that the average family would save $330 per year. I don't think there are that many families in Massachusetts who would say that doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's significant money. Of course, it's harder on low-income folks and students and others on limited income, but that's, to me, that's a significant amount of money, not to mention what we don't necessarily put a dollar cost on, but the pollution and the harm to our environment from that amount of waste. So I think there's a cost in both dollars and in public health and the environment that we absolutely have to reckon with.
All righty, thank you for that answer. Are there other members of the committee who have questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony, and I'm looking for Drake Jamali next. Are you available?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the chairs and the members of the committee for allowing me to speak today on our opposition to both H341 and S166. My name is Drake Jamali. I'm with the Security Industry Association. We're a nonprofit trade association representing businesses that provide a broad range of security products for government, commercial, and residential users, including over 24 businesses with headquarters, employees, and operations in Massachusetts. Some of these security solutions include carbon monoxide detectors, explosion protected cameras, advanced locking mechanisms for access control and alarm systems, and other safety devices. Our member companies develop, manufacture, and integrate technology to help keep people safe from fire, theft, and other hazards. SIA's top concerns on both bills revolve around the overly broad and vague definition of digital electronic product. In the bills, which seemingly encompass all digital electronic products, our member companies would be forced to disclose proprietary diagnostic and reparation information to individuals who do not have the requisite skills to fix any known defects, and thus puts the security integrity of residential and commercial users' equipment at risk. One example what would happen if an independent repair provider fixed your home security system, then an individual was able to break into your house for criminal purposes. Both bills do not sufficiently answer who would be liable for this instance. Other examples we can replicate in other cases would be a house catching on fire, pipes leaking carbon monoxide, or a person exposes easily identifiable security vulnerabilities on unlocking mechanisms. And simple malfunctions can cause real and physical harm. And of course, we must incentivize OEMs to ensure the efficacy and integrity of their products. And just lastly, we of course have cybersecurity concerns regarding the publishing of sensitive information, not only impacting OEMs, but of course increases consumer risk to future malicious cyber attacks. Of course, we've seen that in the past year or so. And in the scope of cybersecurity, this includes software updates, source code, and encryption keys and all the like. And I just want to end by saying thank you again for your time and attention to this issue. I know that this is an issue across the nation. And please let us know if SIA or its members can provide any information or any further assistance to you and your colleagues here on the committee. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Jamali. Other questions from members of the committee for Mr. Jamali? Okay, seeing none. Next we have Stephanie C. and then we have Nate Sheddick. After that, we will go back if available to Theodora Scarato and Paul Roberts. So next we have Stephanie C. if you're available.
I'm here. Hi. My name is Stephanie C., and I am the Director of State Government Relations for the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. AEM is the North American-based international trade group, and we represent off-road equipment manufacturers and suppliers with more than 1,000 member companies and 200 product lines in the agriculture and construction-related industry sectors worldwide. While our industry supports a customer's right to repair his or her own equipment, our association opposes S-166 and H-341, both digital right to repair bills. This legislation will not, oops, and I just lost my computer. This legislation will not accomplish its stated goal of reducing the time and expense for equipment repair. However, it will open the door to unintended safety, environmental, and economic consequences. I go deeper into these consequences in my written testimony. So just to be brief, I'm going to address a few things. First, equipment manufacturers already provide the tools and information needed for diagnosis, repair, and maintenance. Over the past few years, major OEMs have begun offering enhanced diagnostic and repair tools. And the local dealers present today have and will go deeper into this, or you can contact your own local dealer for more information. Second, modern equipment is highly sophisticated and complex. Machines are built to maximize productivity while carefully complying with federal and sometimes state mandates for emissions and safety controls. These machines run as a system, and when something is changed, it has cascading impacts down the line. For example, if a farmer wants to increase the horsepower of his or her tractor, the emissions also increase. So it brings the machine out of compliance with the Clean Air Act. Although it's likely not intentional, illegal modification is somewhat common. In an April 2019 study of 770 equipment dealers, 33% reported seeing modified equipment brought in for service in the past 24 months. Some dealers saw up to 50% of equipment being brought in for service that had been modified. The common modifications were either engine tuning or changes to the hydraulic systems or the safety mechanisms. My third point is that equipment manufacturers support hundreds of thousands of family-sustaining jobs in rural Americas through authorized dealer networks. Hundreds of thousands of existing trained and licensed service technicians take pride in the work that they do to support customers, and they provide a vital service to their community. It's inaccurate to assume that trained and licensed service technicians in rural areas will simply open their own repair shops if they lose their jobs due to this legislation. And finally, right to repair laws will not make repairs faster or less expensive. The equipment manufacturing industry, like many industries, is in the midst of of both a workforce crisis and a global supply chain crisis. Right to repair legislation does not solve workforce problems. It does not address supply chain issues. It doesn't even promote reliable wireless rural broadband infrastructure that would allow dealers to remote onto a machine in the field or on a job site to diagnose and offer repair assistance. While these issues are outside of the scope of this committee, legislators wishing to solve real repair-related issues should lean on their fellow state and federal legislators to find solutions to state and federal infrastructure, workforce, and trade problems. On behalf of AEM, I just wanted to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for Ms. C? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We'll move on to Nate Shattuck from Devon Lane Farm Supply. Mr. Shattuck, please go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Chairwoman Moran, Chairman Chan, members of the Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committee, thank you for your opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Nate Shattuck. I'm General Manager at Devon Lane Farm Supply in Belchertown. We operate 2 locations here, power equipment store and farm equipment store here in Belchertown. We employ 10 employees and are actively involved in our community and agricultural industry. On behalf of Devon Lane, I'm here to express our opposition to SB 166 and HB 341 and share why I believe these bills could have significant negative consequences for my industry and our dealership. Before I do that, I want to make it clear that our dealership and the industry fully supports customers' right to repair, but we cannot support a right to modify. At Devon Lane, we consider ourselves partners with our customers. Our focus on ensuring they have the best solution for their equipment needs, maximizing their uptime, productivity, and profitability. We regularly help our customers diagnose and repair their own equipment via phone and work hard to ensure that they have the right replacement parts in stock when our customers need them. We're farmers ourselves. We get it. Keeping our customers' machines up and running is our first priority. We succeed when our customers succeed. In my opinion, H341 and S166 could result in a number of unintended consequences. Access to embedded code as required by the legislation will lead to the continued proliferation of defeat devices. The auto and heavy truck marketplace have shown us what happens when defeat devices are widely marketed to our customers, seeking increased power, fuel economy, save money on DEF fluid, and avoid the time constraints of diesel exhaust filter maintenance. I point to the $75,000 EPA fine handed down to a diesel repair facility in southern Iowa. $75,000 for disabling equipment to reduce air pollution as just one example. Simply put, those defeat devices modify engine controls, emissions features designed to comply with Clean Air Act requirements. A chipped or tuned piece of Tier 4 equipment emits pollutants equivalent to a Tier 0 rating, effectively taking us back 20 years, nullifying much of the work and investments we've invested in cleaning up our environment. In addition to emissions, access modifications of embedded code enables untrained repairers the ability to make unintentional or intentional changes to equipment control systems. Functions such as steering, PTO shutoff, implement controls, speed, hydraulic, and fuel pressure, all of which can impact operator safety for current and subsequent owners, myself, my technicians, and expose subsequent retailers to product liability claims. If I sell or repair a unit that I didn't realize had been modified, resulting in an injury or death, my dealership is on the hook. My dealership is heavily invested in used equipment. This legislation could have significant impact on the used equipment marketplace.
Thank you very much. That's your time. Your testimony is most appreciated, and you're welcome to follow up with written testimony as well. Are there questions for this testifier from anyone on the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir. We're going to go back to Senate 187 and 186, Theodora Scarato. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this testimony today. I'm Theodora Scarato, Executive Director for Environmental Health Trust. If you live in France and you buy an iPhone 13, the models ship with earphones in the box because of laws in the country that require a hands-free kit to protect children, young children. And that happened for the iPhone 12 as well, because in France, Belgium, French Polynesia, and Russia, there's a ban on mobile phone ads to children and the sale of phones designed for young children, and also ensuring in France that you have a hands-free kit to keep the radiation away from your brain. But in the United States, and I have teenagers, you know, children are not being informed, as we know. And sometimes the scandal is not what is illegal, but what is legal in the United States, because it's legal for phones to be advertised to children without families having the information that they need to reduce exposure and really to know how to use technology in safer ways. There has been no robust review by any health and safety agency in the United States of all the science on wireless radiation. On August 13th, 2021, the US Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit ruled in our case, along with other groups and petitioners, Environmental Health Trust et al. Versus the FCC, that the Federal Communications Commission, who has authority regarding the regulations, had not adequately reviewed the record when they determined in 2019 that the 1996 regulations that we have, regulations which are now 25 years old and based on science even earlier, that they adequately protect against all effects. And I'm glad to always answer questions about that. But I wanted to say what is so important about this case is it kind of takes the covers off in terms of what's happening in the United States, where we don't have and haven't had for years a good hard look at the science. Now, the court ruled specifically that the FCC was remanded back to the FCC to address the issues on the record of the FCC related to children specifically, because scientists of Environmental Health Trust, as well as other scientists, have published on children's unique vulnerability. I'm sure you have heard about. They have thinner skulls, they absorb proportionately more radiation, but more importantly, there are impacts to the developing brain which have not been addressed by any federal health and safety agency in the United States. Impacts to memory, impacts to brain development, altered brain development, changes the way the brain functions. So that was ignored by the FCC, according to the court, these issues of children's vulnerabilities, important part of our case. And that is why it is so important that states take actions to have these consumer.
Thank you, that's your time. Appreciate it, and feel free to go ahead and follow up with written testimony. Thank you for your testimony, and I'm now asking members of the committee if there are questions for Ms. Scarato. All right, seeing none, thank you very much. We're now going to go back to Senate 166, Paul Roberts from secureRepairs.org, if you are available.
Great.
Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Senator. And you got our name right. It's secureRepairs.org. I'm Paul Roberts. I'm the founder. And we are a group of 200 cybersecurity, information security, and information technology experts who are supportive of the right to repair. So I'm speaking to you today to voice support for SB 166 and House Bill 341, and also to answer any questions you may have about cyber risk as it relates to repair. I'd like to say that these two bills are really modest in their scope, and they basically require companies that sell electronic products to consumers in Massachusetts to make available to the device owners and to independent repair professionals the same diagnostic software, service manuals, schematics, and information they give to their authorized repair providers. All these dealers and lawyers and PR people who are talking about the risks, the cybersecurity risk and the privacy risk, The information is already out there. It's being given to individuals, authorized repair providers. All we're asking is for the same information to be given to the owners of the devices. These laws are really designed to prevent costly aftermarket monopolies on repair and service that are enforced using software locks and other unfair business practices. What they don't do is create new cybersecurity or privacy risks. Cyber criminals don't hack connected electronic devices by reading their way through service manuals or schematics or gaming diagnostic software. I can tell you that there are thousands of hacks happening every day, and yet the opponents of this bill can't point to a single one linked to schematic diagrams, diagnostic software. This is a canard, okay? The reason, the means by which people attack or hack Internet of Things devices is through insecure software that is often shipped with those devices by the manufacturer or by devices that are insecure by default. They're configured insecurely and deployed that way. The sort of admin password thing that it's such a problem. Right to repair is a vital tool that's going to extend the life of electronic devices, ensure their safety, security, and integrity. And in this time of increasing wealth inequality and concentrations of market power by large technology firms who can hire the lawyers and the PR flacks to come in and talk your ear off, a digital right to repair ensures that the spoils of the coming Internet of Things are shared equally with consumers, communities, small businessmen and women. And I urge you to support these bills. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer your questions, especially if they're about cybersecurity.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Are there questions from members of the committee for Mr. Roberts?
I did written testimony as well. Yeah.
That would be wonderful. And thank you very much for your testimony. That concludes the testifiers that we have signed up. I do want to state that today is also the hearing for the following bills. We have House 349 by Rep. Day, an act relative to the security of personal financial info. House 375 by Rep. Gentili, an act in protection of personal identity. House 396 by Rep. Howard, an act to prohibit negative option sales and disclosure of financial and personal information without a consumer's express agreement. House 415, Rep. Kalkoris, an act relative to credit rating protection. House 4029, Rep. LaBeouf, an act relative to algorithmic accountability and bias prevention. Senate 161, Mike Barrett, an act relative to protecting biometric information under the security breach law. Senate 172, Senator Chen Diaz, an act relative to identity fraud, and Senate 214, Senator Lesser's, an act to ensure driver privacy with electronic tolling. And that is the end of our hearing list, in which case, if there's nothing else, Chair Chan, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, make a motion to close today's hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. We do close the hearing as of now. Thank you all for attending. Thank you to the members. Enjoy your day.